Have you seen the signs in people over 65 a year before they pass away? It's an unsettling thought, but the truth is that many individuals over 65 display clear physical and behavioral changes up to a year before they pass. These signs are often subtle at first, easily dismissed as natural aging, but medical professionals have identified specific patterns that can indicate when the body is preparing for the end. In this video, we're revealing 7 key signs that often appear in individuals over 65 in the year leading up to their passing. From unexpected shifts in weight to changes in behavior, these signals can offer valuable insight into what's happening beneath the surface. Understanding these signs can help families provide the right support and care in a loved one's final months, ensuring dignity and comfort in life's closing chapter. Stay tuned until the end, because recognizing these changes might not only prepare you emotionally, but also allow for interventions that could improve quality of life. Whether you are concerned for yourself or a loved one, this information is something everyone should be aware of. Now let's get started. Number 1. Sudden, unexplained weight loss. One of the earliest and most concerning signs doctors often observe in elderly individuals before they pass is sudden, unexplained weight loss. If an older person begins to shed pounds without changing their diet or lifestyle, it's usually a red flag. Weight loss on its own isn't always a bad thing, but when it happens rapidly and without an obvious cause, it often points to something serious happening inside the body. It could be a sign of an undiagnosed illness such as cancer, advanced heart disease, or organ failure. Sometimes, the body is simply struggling to absorb nutrients properly, leading to muscle wasting and weakness. For example, imagine an 82-year-old man like Richard, who was always a sturdy, strong figure in his family. Over the course of just a few months, he lost nearly 15 pounds without trying. At first, his family thought it was just normal aging, but soon they noticed he wasn't eating as much, and his clothes seemed to hang off of him. When he finally saw a doctor, they discovered he had an underlying condition that was affecting his ability to maintain weight. By the time they caught it, his body had already weakened significantly. Doctors often say that weight loss in elderly individuals isn't just about the number on the scale. It's about what the loss represents. The body is an incredibly complex system, and when something is wrong, it starts using up its own reserves to survive. Losing fat and muscle at a rapid rate can mean the body is no longer able to properly process food, fight off illness, or maintain strength. This decline can make it harder to recover from even minor infections, leading to a downward spiral in overall health. Another key aspect is that weight loss often comes with a decrease in appetite. A person might start skipping meals, feeling full faster, or showing disinterest in food they once enjoyed. While this could be due to changing taste buds or medication side effects, it can also indicate a deeper issue. The body naturally slows down as it nears the end of life, and part of that process often includes a reduced need for food. However, if a loved one suddenly stops eating well and begins losing weight rapidly, it's important to take it seriously. Family members and caregivers should pay attention to subtle cues. If an elderly person starts needing to tighten their belt more frequently, if their jewelry becomes loose, or if they appear visibly thinner in their face and hands, it may be time to consult a doctor. Addressing weight loss early could lead to finding an underlying condition that might still be manageable. Even if nothing serious is found, simple interventions like adjusting diet, adding nutritional supplements, or managing medications can help slow the decline and improve their overall well-being. Losing weight may seem like a normal part of aging, but when it happens too quickly, it's often the body's way of signaling that something isn't right. If you or someone you know has been experiencing unexplained weight loss, don't dismiss it. Consider it a reason to take action and seek professional advice. Number 2. Increased fatigue and weakness. One of the most common but overlooked signs that an elderly person may be approaching their final year of life is a persistent sense of fatigue and weakness. This isn't the normal kind of tiredness that comes from a long day or a poor night's sleep. It's a deep, unshakable exhaustion that lingers no matter how much rest they get. When someone who was once active and engaged suddenly finds themselves struggling to complete even the simplest daily tasks, it's often a sign that their body is slowing down in a more profound way. Fatigue in older adults can stem from a variety of causes, but in the context of nearing the end of life, it is often tied to declining organ function. The heart may not be pumping as efficiently, reducing oxygen and nutrient delivery to muscles and tissues. The kidneys or liver may not be filtering toxins as effectively, leading to a buildup of waste in the body that makes a person feel sluggish. Even the immune system can become overworked, constantly fighting off infections or inflammation, leaving little energy for anything else. Take the case of 78-year-old Margaret, who always loved tending to her garden. For years, she spent her mornings outside pulling weeds and watering her flowers. But her daughter started noticing small changes. Margaret would tire after just a few minutes of activity, leaning on her shovel to catch her breath. Eventually, even walking up the steps to her front door became a challenge. At first, she brushed it off as just part of getting older, but the change happened too quickly to be normal. Doctors often look for patterns in energy levels. If someone who once enjoyed light activities like reading, chatting with friends, or cooking meals now prefers to spend most of their time resting, it signals that something deeper is going on. Chronic fatigue in the elderly isn't just about feeling sleepy. It's about losing the strength and motivation to move through daily life. Their body might be struggling to maintain basic functions, diverting all available energy toward essential systems while shutting down non-essential ones. Another crucial factor is how fatigue affects mood and mental clarity. People who experience prolonged weakness often become less engaged with their surroundings. They may start sleeping more during the day, speaking less, or losing interest in things they once enjoyed. This isn't just a mental shift, it's the body's way of conserving energy. Some elderly individuals may describe feeling heavy or like they're moving through water, struggling to find the strength to do what once felt effortless. If you notice a loved one exhibiting these signs, it's important not to assume it's just part of aging. While some energy loss is natural, extreme fatigue, especially when paired with noticeable weakness, is often a major red flag. Seeking medical advice can help identify potential underlying issues, whether it's anemia, heart failure, or an imbalance in electrolytes. In some cases, adjusting medications, increasing hydration, or addressing nutritional deficiencies can improve energy levels and bring back some vitality. The key takeaway here is that when an elderly person suddenly seems far weaker than before, it's often a sign that their body is redirecting its resources for survival. Paying attention to this shift can provide valuable insight into their overall health and help families prepare for what may be coming. If you are still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3. Social withdrawal and personality changes. A surprising but significant sign that doctors have observed in elderly individuals nearing the end of life is a noticeable shift in personality or social engagement. This change can take many forms. Someone who was once outgoing may become more reserved. Conversations may feel shorter and less enthusiastic, and there may be a general disinterest in activities they once enjoyed. While many people associate social withdrawal with depression in older adults, it can also be a subtle signal that the body is preparing for its final stage. One of the key reasons this happens is because the brain and body are deeply connected. As physical health declines, energy levels drop, and mental engagement often follows. The effort required to maintain conversations, go out with friends, or even respond to phone calls can start to feel overwhelming. This is especially true if they are experiencing chronic pain, fatigue, or a general sense of unwellness. It's not necessarily that they are feeling sad. It's that their body no longer has the resources to keep up with social interactions in the same way it once did. Consider an example. 80-year-old James was always the life of the party, known for cracking jokes at family gatherings and calling his old army buddies regularly. But over time, his family noticed that he stopped answering his phone as often. He began skipping events he once loved, and even when he did show up, he seemed distant and quiet. At first, they thought he was just tired, but as the months went by, he withdrew more and more. Eventually, they realized something deeper was happening. His health was declining, and his withdrawal was one of the first warning signs. Doctors emphasize that when someone starts pulling away from their usual social circles, it's important to consider the reason. Is it due to sadness, physical discomfort, memory struggles, or is it part of a larger pattern of decline? Some elderly individuals may stop participating in conversations because their cognitive abilities are slowing down, making it harder to keep up. Others might feel embarrassed by their physical limitations, preferring to avoid gatherings where they feel less capable than before. Another aspect to watch for is sudden personality changes. If someone becomes noticeably more irritable, anxious, or even confused, it may be linked to an underlying medical issue. Organ dysfunction, medication side effects, or even early stages of dementia can all contribute to mood changes. In some cases, shifts in personality can happen because the body is redirecting energy to essential functions, leaving less for emotional regulation. What's particularly heartbreaking is that these changes often go unnoticed or are misinterpreted as personal rejection. Loved ones may assume the elderly individual is simply losing interest in family or friends when, in reality, they may be struggling with a physical or cognitive decline that makes interaction more difficult. Understanding that this behavior is not intentional can help families respond with patience and support rather than frustration. While social withdrawal is common in older adults, a sudden or dramatic shift should never be ignored. Encouraging gentle engagement, such as short visits, listening to music together, or simply sitting in comfortable silence, can help maintain a connection without overwhelming them. In cases where withdrawal is paired with other warning signs, seeking medical advice can help uncover whether an underlying condition is contributing to the change. Recognizing when someone is pulling away is about more than just social concerns. It can be an early indication that their body is going through significant changes. If a loved one has been showing signs of withdrawal, take it as an opportunity to offer support and ensure they receive the care they need. Number 4. Recurring infections or slow healing. One of the most telling signs that an elderly person may be approaching their final stage of life is a noticeable decline in their immune system. When the body begins to weaken, it becomes less capable of fighting off infections and healing from even minor wounds. This is why doctors often see a pattern of recurring illnesses, frequent colds, urinary tract infections, pneumonia, or even skin infections that take much longer to recover from than they used to. In some cases, a small cut or bruise that once healed in days may linger for weeks, or an illness that was once manageable might turn into something far more serious. The immune system is like a protective shield, constantly working behind the scenes to fight off bacteria, viruses, and other harmful invaders. But as we age, this system naturally weakens. White blood cell production slows down, inflammatory responses become less effective, and the body's ability to generate new healthy tissue declines. When this happens, infections that were once minor inconveniences can turn into chronic, life-threatening conditions. Take the case of 81-year-old Walter. He had always been relatively healthy, managing his daily routine without major issues. But over the span of a few months, his family noticed that he was catching colds more frequently, and each time it seemed to take longer for him to recover. When he got a small cut on his hand while gardening, it remained red and inflamed for weeks. Eventually, a simple urinary tract infection led to a severe fever, requiring hospitalization. His body, once resilient, was no longer able to defend itself the way it once did. What's especially concerning about recurring infections in elderly individuals is that they can often be silent at first. Unlike younger adults, Older people may not always show typical signs of infection, like high fever or pain. Instead, their symptoms might be subtle: mild fatigue, confusion, or a general sense of feeling off. This makes it even more important to pay attention to changes in their health, no matter how small they seem. Another major factor is slow healing. When an elderly person gets a bruise, scratch, or minor wound, and it takes an unusually long time to heal, it's often a sign that circulation is compromised. Poor circulation means the body isn't delivering enough oxygen and nutrients to damaged tissue, making it harder to repair itself. This can be due to aging blood vessels, reduced heart function, or even conditions like diabetes that further slow the healing process. In some cases, infections don't just signal a weakened immune system. They can also be a sign that the body is struggling with an underlying issue. Chronic infections can indicate kidney problems, undiagnosed diabetes, or even the early stages of organ failure. When the body is nearing the end of life, it prioritizes its remaining energy toward essential functions, often at the expense of its ability to fight off illness. If you notice an elderly loved one experiencing frequent infections, lingering colds, or wounds that just won't heal, it's essential to take action. Seeking medical advice can help determine whether there are underlying conditions that need attention. In some cases, small adjustments like improving hydration, adjusting diet, or modifying medications can strengthen the immune response and improve overall well-being. But in other cases, recurring infections are a sign that the body is gradually shutting down. Knowing this can help families prepare and ensure their loved ones receive the care they need. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 5. Difficulty swallowing or loss of appetite. Another deeply concerning sign that often appears in elderly individuals nearing the end of life is a noticeable difficulty swallowing or a sudden loss of appetite. While it may seem like just another part of aging, medical experts warn that this can signal something far more serious. When an older person begins eating less or struggling to swallow food and liquids, it often means their body is no longer processing nourishment the way it once did. This change can be gradual or sudden, but either way, it's a sign that should never be ignored. Swallowing is something most of us take for granted. It's a reflex that happens without much thought. But as the body ages, the muscles responsible for swallowing can weaken. In some cases, this is due to neurological conditions like Parkinson's or dementia, which disrupt the brain's ability to control these muscles. In other cases, difficulty swallowing, also known as dysphagia, can be linked to declining organ function. As the body begins shutting down, it naturally slows down non-essential processes, and digestion is often one of the first to be affected. Take the case of 83-year-old Helen. She had always enjoyed her morning coffee and toast, but one day, her daughter noticed that she was taking much longer to finish her meal. Helen would chew for an unusually long time, sometimes coughing slightly before swallowing. Over time, she began eating less and less, leaving most of her food untouched. Eventually, even drinking water became a challenge. By the time she sought medical attention, her body had already entered a weakened state, making it difficult to recover. Loss of appetite is another major warning sign that doctors take seriously. While it's common for people to eat less as they age, a sudden or extreme drop in food intake is different. It's often a signal that the body no longer feels the need for as much energy because it is preparing to slow down. When this happens, elderly individuals may start skipping meals entirely, showing disinterest in foods they once loved, or claiming they just aren't hungry. One of the biggest risks of swallowing difficulties and appetite loss is malnutrition. When an elderly person isn't eating enough, their body loses muscle mass, their immune system weakens, and their overall strength declines. This can lead to a vicious cycle. Weakness makes eating even harder, and eating less leads to further weakness. Over time, even a minor illness or infection can become life-threatening simply because the body lacks the resources to fight back. Families and caregivers often struggle with how to handle the situation. It's natural to want to encourage a loved one to eat more, but forcing food isn't always the right approach. Instead, it's important to focus on small, nutrient-dense meals that are easy to swallow. Soft foods, broths, and nutritional shakes can sometimes help, but if swallowing continues to be difficult, seeking medical advice is essential. In some cases, speech or swallowing therapy can improve function, while in others, doctors may recommend alternative feeding methods. Ultimately, when an elderly person begins to show a significant decline in appetite or has trouble swallowing, it's often one of the clearest signs that their body is going through a major transition. While it can be heartbreaking to witness, understanding the reasons behind it can help families make informed decisions about care and comfort. If a loved one starts eating less or struggling with swallowing, take it as a sign to provide support, ensure their comfort, and seek medical guidance to understand what their body is telling them. Number 6. Unsteady walking or frequent falls. A sudden change in mobility is one of the most overlooked but crucial warning signs that an elderly person may be in their final years of life. While it's normal for balance and strength to decline with age, a noticeable increase in falls, difficulty walking, or sudden instability often points to something far more serious. When an older adult begins struggling to move as they once did, it's a sign that their muscles, nerves, or circulation are no longer functioning at the same level. This decline isn't just about physical frailty. It's often a sign of deeper systemic changes happening inside the body. One of the primary reasons elderly individuals become more prone to falling is the gradual weakening of muscles and bones. As we age, the body naturally loses muscle mass, but when this process accelerates, it can lead to a condition known as sarcopenia. This makes everyday movements like standing up from a chair, walking down a hallway, or stepping onto a curb far more difficult than before. Even if someone was once active and independent, they may suddenly find themselves relying on walls, furniture, or the assistance of others just to move around. Take the case of 79-year-old Frank. He had always been steady on his feet, never thinking twice about walking around his house or running errands. But over a few months, he started stumbling more often. At first, it was just a couple of near misses. He brushed it off as clumsiness. Then came the first real fall. Nothing serious, just a bruise on his arm. But as time went on, the falls became more frequent, and his confidence in moving around started to fade. His family later learned that his circulation was deteriorating, and his nervous system wasn't reacting as quickly as it once had. Balance issues aren't always about muscle loss. Sometimes they stem from changes in the brain. Neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease, many strokes, or even undiagnosed dementia can impair coordination and slow reaction times. The nervous system plays a crucial role in how we move, sending signals from the brain to the body to maintain balance. When those signals start misfiring or slowing down, falls become more likely. Another factor that contributes to mobility issues is poor circulation. The heart's ability to pump blood weakens with age, and when blood flow to the legs decreases, it can cause numbness, weakness, and dizziness. This is why some elderly individuals feel lightheaded when they stand up too quickly or struggle with their footing after sitting for long periods. In more advanced cases, the body prioritizes circulation to essential organs like the heart and brain, leaving the extremities, especially the legs, without the oxygen and nutrients they need to function properly. The danger of frequent falls extends far beyond the risk of injury. A single bad fall can lead to a broken hip, severe injury, or even hospitalization. Studies have shown that after a major fall, many elderly individuals experience a rapid decline in health, often due to complications like infections, reduced mobility, or the psychological fear of falling again. This fear alone can lead to less movement, which in turn accelerates physical decline. If you notice an elderly loved one becoming unsteady on their feet, Don't ignore it. Encourage them to use supportive devices like a cane or walker. But more importantly, consult a doctor to see if there's an underlying medical issue at play. Sometimes, simple solutions, like adjusting medications, improving hydration, or engaging in physical therapy, can restore some stability. However, in other cases, frequent falls may be a warning sign that the body is gradually losing its ability to function as it once did. Number 7. Confusion, hallucinations, or cognitive decline. One of the most alarming yet frequently misunderstood signs that an elderly person may be in their final year of life is a sudden or gradual decline in cognitive function. This can manifest in many ways: forgetfulness, difficulty following conversations, sudden confusion about time or place, or even experiencing hallucinations. While many associate memory loss with normal aging, a noticeable shift in mental clarity, especially when it happens over a short period, can indicate something far more serious. The brain requires a constant supply of oxygen and nutrients to function properly, and as the body begins to weaken, the brain is often one of the first organs to show distress. In some cases, cognitive decline is caused by reduced circulation, meaning the brain isn't getting the oxygen it needs. In other cases, it may be due to an underlying medical condition, such as undiagnosed infections, medication side effects, or even early-stage organ failure. When the body starts prioritizing its remaining energy toward essential functions, cognitive processes such as memory, attention, and reasoning can start to deteriorate. Take the case of 85-year-old Dorothy. She had always been sharp-witted, remembering birthdays, telling old family stories, and keeping up with the news. But her son noticed that she started repeating herself more often. At first, it was small things, forgetting a conversation from earlier in the day or misplacing her keys. But over time, she began losing track of time, forgetting where she was going, and even waking up confused about whether it was morning or night. One evening, she told her family that she saw her late husband standing in the hallway. That's when they realized something was seriously wrong. Hallucinations in elderly individuals can be particularly distressing, both for them and for their loved ones. Seeing people who aren't there, hearing voices, or feeling sensations that have no physical cause can all be signs that the brain is struggling. While hallucinations are often associated with dementia or neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease, they can also occur when the body is in distress. Dehydration, infections, or even a lack of sleep can trigger these episodes. But when they become more frequent, they can indicate that the body is shutting down. Another common but subtle sign is something called terminal restlessness. This is when an elderly person becomes unusually agitated, anxious, or disoriented, often pacing, picking at their sheets, or seeming unable to settle down. This behavior is sometimes linked to discomfort, but it can also be a sign that the body is struggling to regulate itself in its final months. Doctors emphasize that while some cognitive changes are expected with age, sudden or extreme shifts should never be ignored. If an elderly loved one suddenly starts struggling to remember familiar faces, has difficulty speaking in full sentences, or seems lost in their own home, it's essential to seek medical advice. Sometimes these symptoms are reversible, caused by an infection, dehydration, or medication issues that can be addressed. But in other cases, they signal a deeper decline that families should prepare for. The most important thing to remember is that cognitive changes aren't just about memory loss. They're about how the body is functioning as a whole. If someone is experiencing confusion or hallucinations, it's not just a sign of aging. It's a signal that something significant is happening internally. Paying attention to these changes can help ensure that your loved one gets the care and comfort they need in their final months. As we wrap up this video, take a moment to reflect on the 7 signs we've discussed. These changes aren't always easy to recognize, and even when they are, it can be difficult to accept what they might mean. But understanding them allows us to be better prepared to offer the right kind of care and ensure that our loved ones are as comfortable as possible in their final months. What stood out to you the most? Have you noticed any of these signs in someone you know? Recognizing them doesn't mean giving up hope. It means knowing when to seek medical advice, when to adjust care, and when to focus on quality of life rather than just extending time. Every person's journey is unique, but the body has a way of signaling when it needs help, and paying attention to these signals is one of the most compassionate things we can do. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.